We have to learn to let go and allow life to happen through us without any judgments, without any preconceived notions, just allowing life to be what it is.
We're finding who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We're finding who we are.
There's only one reform in life. When you and I stop living from our heads, you and I are here for one very solid reason, and that is to learn to be loving.
We're finding our way together, just you and me.
Namaste. We are in one of the most sacred parts of India, Deer Park, where Buddha gave his first discourse on the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. Come aspire with us.
Known as the cradle of Buddhism, Sarnath is where Buddha came to reveal his Eightfold Path more than 2,500 years ago. Here at Deer Park, he established the middle path between asceticism and self-indulgence. Enlightenment became accessible to anyone regardless of social standing. About 250 years before Christ, the great Buddhist emperor Ashoka built many stupas and buildings, including Ashoka's pillar, which once stood 50 feet high. By the year 640, Sarnath had 1,500 priests who sat each day around the banyan tree where Gautama himself had meditated. Soon after, the teachings of Buddha went into decline as invaders desecrated the buildings and introduced their own dogma. Fortunately, Buddhism had already spread to the east, and today remains one of the world's great religions.
We are at the most sacred spot in the world, in my opinion, especially if you're a person who has gotten anything out of the beautiful teachings of Buddha. We are standing on the very spot where he gave his first discourse. After his enlightenment, he came here to Deer Park in India, where he met with the rest of his followers, his sannyasins, who most of them had left because they were disappointed that he ate and had given up his austerities. And he had come here to give the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, which were to be the cornerstones of his teaching. Buddha. You don't have to be a Buddhist to appreciate Buddha. I am not a Buddhist any more than I'm a Zenist or a Christianist or a Gregist. But to appreciate the teachings of Buddha is to appreciate the deep compassion for which he taught. Buddha's teachings are not like any other masters. There are certain things that Buddha said which could not be said by anyone else but the master himself. And one of his greatest teachings was, want nothing with all of your heart. It is from this very place that that profound statement was made. Want nothing with all of your heart. What does that mean? It's talking about discontinuing your life from living from the past. It means stop living from what was to step out into what is. When Buddha talks about the idea of wanting nothing with all of your heart, he is talking about the desires that plague us and kill us, the desires that take away from our life and keep us from living in the very moment that we are in. It was from this spot that Buddha was seeking to help people understand liberation. The truth of Buddha nature that lives within you and lives within me, it's like Christ's nature that lives within all of us. It lives there as an entity, as a power, as a presence. The only thing that gets in the way is the psychology of us, the desire of us. And when we live in the desire, when we live in wanting things to happen to us, to change us, to motivate us, to move us, to make us better, we miss what real Buddha nature is all about. And that's what the Master meant when he said, want nothing with all of your heart. He wasn't talking about suppression. He was talking about acceptance. Acceptance of your higher nature, that what we really want is not things to change, but what we really want is deep understanding about who and what we really are, to allow ourselves to come out, to allow ourselves to be real. There is a feeling here at Deer Park, the birthplace of tremendous spirituality, the feeling of not desire, but compassion and gentleness. The teachings of Buddha are not about fanaticism. They are about gentleness and love. And when one really gets a hold of the Eightfold Path, begins to understand the nature of desirelessness, when one can touch into meditation deeply, profoundly, that is when one begins to understand the very nature, the causation of life. Buddha was not here to explain why we live and why we die and where we're supposed to go and what is happening. He was simply trying to get us to look to the core of ourselves. His was the greatest love that a human could know, because it was love for all people. He wasn't out to make the world different. He was out only to offer alternative, a simple chance to find the infinite inside of a human being. And through his teachings of wanting nothing with all of your heart, just one of the basic teachings, one begins to perceive that we can step out of the past and no longer make a circle of our life. For when we live out of desire, we live out of that circle, that wheel that goes round and round. Buddha represents the breaking of that wheel, the karmic wheel as he called it. The wheel of Dharma moves on in a different way. Now there is growth and progression. Now there is beauty and insight. And his teachings were not something that were to make us different, but to offer us the difference, the liberation of the heart and of the soul. I have, at times in my life, read different stories about Buddha that literally caused me to weep. He was such a beautiful man, unassuming. There is no one in the world who has ever affected so many people as Gautama the Buddha. His work and his teachings are not about religious austerity. They are about practicality. The practicality of love and compassion. As we stand here in this beautiful garden where he gave his first discourse on the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths, one cannot help but feel a sense of tremendous reverence for his work and his love. Want nothing with all of your heart. Don't hold back. Don't live from the past. Live from your heart. Live from the genuineness of yourself and feel the moment of this. Your life is meaningful, not for the things that are happening to you or are not happening to you, but because it's the genuineness of your life. And this is what Buddha was teaching. The authenticity of a person's life, that suffering was not there as karmic punishment, but suffering was there to help awaken us. That we put that suffering in front of us. It is not a punishment from God, but rather it is our own way of seeking and understanding the way of our own life. And sometimes the only way we understand something is to feel the pain. Buddha helped people understand that. He didn't try to take away from their life. He gave to them understanding. He didn't want people to follow him. He wanted them to find their own light. He didn't want Buddhists any more than Jesus wanted Christians. He wanted people to be authentic and real, to feel the nature of themselves and the beauty of their life through this existence. Meaning is found, according to Buddha, not from what you do, but in whom you really are, who you really are inside, that presence. So meditation was his key. He didn't teach dogma or doctrine. He wasn't trying to make Gitas, Bibles, or Qurans. He simply taught the most powerful form of meditation that exists, Vipassana, simply watching the breath. And he said from watching the breath, a person can find love. Love, not as we know it as an emotion, but as the feel of our heart and our soul. When we come back, I want to talk to you finally about one of his greatest teachings, about love, when he said, see how you love and what keeps you from the journey, because it is in the way we love that keeps us from who and what we really are. It is not something that can be taught. It must be something that you feel, that you know, and then finally, that you live. If wanting nothing with all of your heart is a mind blower, which Buddha said, then listen to this one. If you've ever wondered why the spiritual path is difficult, it isn't because you're stupid, because you're not. It isn't because you don't have it, because you do. It's because of what Buddha said. See how you love and what keeps you from the journey. Even now I have chills running up and down me when I listen to those words, to see how I love and what keeps Gregory, what keeps you from our journey on the spiritual path. It isn't about how smart or clever we are or how adept we are at philosophy. It's the way we love. Probably the thing that's most frightening about Buddha's teachings is that we have to look at how we love, not analyze it, but really take a hard look. How do I love? How do you love? Well, if we look at it, we love as possessiveness. That is the first thing we have to begin to admit. Anything that we love, we want to keep, to own, to contain. Buddha wouldn't call that love. That is emotion. It has nothing to do with what real love is all about. When I'm trying to take what it is that I love and possess it and keep it, I've killed it. I've smothered it underneath the pressure of what it is that I believe or that I want. Love is also another thing. It's an openness. When we really love, we would not only not want to smother something, but we would want to keep it fresh and alive. And the only way you can keep consciousness fresh and alive is to be open to all things and not to try to limit things in the form of how we believe things should be. I listen to people talk about their philosophical idealisms about life, their metaphysics. If you're deeply metaphysical, how can you love? Because metaphysics creates an order, creates some sort of understanding, creates some sort of love that goes beyond what real love is. It has nothing to do with love, it's made up. To be open, to see how we love, is to accept the suchness of life, as Buddha called it, the patata, the suchness of life. That is to accept the love of life and to keep fresh and open in it by being so free inside that when death comes, we accept it, we don't analyze it. When birth comes, we accept it, we don't analyze it. Enmity comes, friendship goes, friendship comes, enmity goes. We begin to understand the flow, the suchness of life, and we are a witness to it. We are not trying to change things. We are not looking for a better life. We are looking for the life that has always lived within us. That kind of experience is what Buddha meant when he said, see how you love and what keeps you from your journey. I've never been limited due to my intellectual precepts and thoughts. I've had too many of those in my life, far too many of those. They don't matter. But the one thing that has really limited me is the way I've loved. I have loved according to the conditioning that I have been taught. My family gave to me, my society, even the things that I believed in somehow that I called my religion. But when you start walking the path of the great Gautama Buddha, when you really start listening to his teachings, you begin to understand that only in silence is real love understood, the love that is God. And you begin to understand inside of yourself that you can't hold on to your past and you can't hold on to love like you used to. You have to let it go and find the genuine love that lives within you. It is a love beyond something that I could teach you over the television. It is love that is found only in silence and meditation. If there is a cornerstone to Buddha's work, it isn't what he taught. It is what he never said. It is the way he felt. It is his silence. His silence was the greatest teaching. And that silence can only be found through meditation. It must be found now in ourselves through quietness, compassion, and deliberateness. Probably India's greatest contribution to the spiritual world was Gautama Buddha.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about why India, per se, almost ignores Buddha.
This is really a question which I'm asking myself. But historically, you know, the Buddhism went out of India and it is outside in Burma and China and Japan and now in America. The Buddhism is so accepted. Why not in India? And I feel the Hinduism, the Hindu religion, is so full of mythology and all that, you know. And Buddhism, as his teachings, it doesn't have that mythological stuff, you know. He appeals to the reason, you know, as he talks about the human life, suffering, and one has to be a light to oneself. So many people don't find any mythological stimulation. But what I feel, you know, that India is also honoring Buddha. And if we see the art, the Ajanta and the Gupta architecture and all those monuments and places, Buddhism is still there. And now it is becoming a life force because there are now people who are taking to Buddhist meditation like Vipassana.
Let's talk about Vipassana meditation. What is it per se?
This form of meditation is without any ideological program as such. People here are first of all taught to sit quietly, close their eyes, and first of all watch their breath. Incoming breath, outgoing breath. And this they do it for 3 days. And then one realizes how breath plays such an important part in one's own life. And this part of Vipassana is called Anapana Vidya. Then from the 4th day onwards, you close your eyes and you are just watching what is happening in your body right from your head, and gradually you are exploring the different parts of your body and just feeling what is, experiencing the various sensations. And I find this is only when one does Vipassana, one realizes the powerful strength of this, you know, because normally we are very unaware of our body. It is through Vipassana we develop an awareness in our whole body.
What is your feeling about Vipassana and its effect on the psyche of a person, the spirituality of a person?
For the psychological effect, through Vipassana, your body, you are bringing a bodily, physical integration. You have become very quiet. And the final part of Vipassana is having meditated on the body, you look to the whole world and start practicing a sort of Maitri Bhava, they call it friendship to the world and to the life around. And then you are trying to match your own meditation with a sort of compassion and love for the world. So the effect of Vipassana is very, very total, holistic.
And healing. Thank you. Here we are in the living quarters of Buddha. This is where he ate, where he slept, where he taught his disciples, where he meditated. And meditation is the major key in his teaching. He offered to us something that is so simple in meditation that anyone can learn it at any given time in their life, and it guarantees results. It's called Vipassana meditation, the breath of life. It's about breathing, watching the breath in, watching the breath out. Something as simple as that, of watching, of concentrating on the breath and the spaces and the gap between breaths. This was the method that Buddha said he used to attain enlightenment. How it works? It offers to us witness. If you practice doing Vipassana, watching breath in, watching breath out, soon you find a slow detachment from yourself. First from your body, then from your emotions, and then finally the great detachment, the detachment from the mind, the unconscious conditioning of us. In that moment, there's a tremendous sense of satori, a tremendous sense of moments of freedom, of liberation. And that is one of Buddha's greatest teachings about liberation. He talked about not being judgmental, about dropping judgments. If you are a judgmental person, and you look at your life and you pride yourself on the opinions and the judgments you have, you will not be able to meditate. Again, see how you love and what keeps you from the journey. When a person prides themselves on their judgments and their opinions, meditation becomes analysis. Meditation becomes goal-oriented. The life of Buddha is about simplicity, no goal orientation, no competition, no obtainment. The attainment comes as a pure accident, as a result of our diligence, of our forwardness in just simply watching our breathing. There was no master, in my opinion, other than Lao Tzu and Jesus, who was as beautiful as Buddha. And again, don't misunderstand me. To love Buddha's teachings doesn't mean you're a Buddhist. It simply means you appreciate the aesthetic beauty of Buddha, because he was about aesthetic beauty, the beauty of nature, the beauty of life. And he said that everything in life was sacred, everything in life was important, and nothing was to be misunderstood. He's about drinking in life, not denying it. So the sufferings that we move through, he would say, you put that upon yourself and you can let it go at any time. And the love that you desire, it lives within you. Simply accept it. The teachings of Buddha, they're for those who are of the heart. Namaste. There's only one reform in life. When you and I stop living from our heads, you and I are here for one very solid reason, and that is to learn to be loving.